Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to this little bit unusual video that we're going to do today. Unfortunately, there was some very sad news today. We heard that Jules Bianchi, the F1 racing driver, unfortunately passed away today as a result of an accident that occurred last year in October, I believe.
That's right.
And we just wanted to say a few words about it, and it's kind of come at an unfortunate time for us. Not that we're really anything important or anything, but joining me today is Dominic, normally known on this channel as Cheapy. We just wanted to say a few words, really, and just sort of explain how we feel about it and what we're going to do in terms of the video we're going to put out tomorrow. So, yeah, I'll let you say a few words.
All right, yeah. So we were going to do this video yesterday. We're going to do it pretty much 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, very small hours of yesterday morning. That just happens to be how we sort of planned it. That's how the timing worked out for us. Then, obviously, we wake up in the morning to find out this news. Now, our first reaction is that's an absolute tragedy. That's awful. And then, of course, we both think about this video that we're about to record, about to put out, and we think, well, can we still do this? Is it right to do a video on a sport the same day that we hear that one of the drivers in this case has passed away? Uh, I certainly spent a little while thinking about it. I don't know if I don't know how long you deliberated on it yourself, but I came to the decision that, at least for me, it's important to still get it out. You can't let something like that affect it. It's an absolute tragedy. It's shocking. It's unfortunately in this case, it's something that was on the cards. It was unfortunately he's been in hospital since October, and as far as I know, he never regained consciousness. And as I say, I think it's unfortunate that in a way, that we still should be putting this video out. My main basis for this is next week they'll be in Hungary for the Hungarian Grand Prix. And yes, there will be a memorial, I'm sure, but that race will still, that will still happen. Those drivers will still be out there racing because they'll probably be right in saying that's what Bianchi would have wanted. Now, I don't want to put words into his mouth, but most drivers will say, if they ever get interviewed on it, that they would want the sport to go on. They would want the drivers to still go on and still race
Yeah,
even in the event of a tragedy.
I would completely agree with that. And I think it would be fair to say that anyone who gets into the sport of F1, you follow it a lot closer than I do, so you would know a lot better than I do. But I would imagine that anyone who gets into the sport of F1, especially at that level, professional level, F1 is their life and it's their passion. And I think it would be fair to say that Jules would have wanted F1 to go on with, regardless of the unfortunate tragedy that has happened. And I think that should include the fandom of F1 and the games of F1. And I think the best way we can pay any kind of tribute to him would be to actually continue with what we were going to do anyway. I think you would agree with that.
Yeah, that's the same way I see it. I mean, I don't want to pen all the same drivers as the same kind of people, but generally speaking, they are racing drivers. Racing is something they've been doing since the ages of perhaps as young as 3 or 4, and they've just become through the ranks, through the national ranks, and through into the pinnacle of sport, Formula One. And yeah, as a general rule, as I say, you hear from them that they will want the show to continue. They will want drivers to race. It's happened. Unfortunately, this kind of thing has happened before. I mean, a couple of years ago, the same team, one of their testing drivers, Maria de Viotta, you may have heard about that yourself, was involved in an accident while testing. Now, she encountered injuries and recovered for a while before unfortunately dying from complications. But yeah, there was a lot of discussion about whether the next race should go on and how to approach it. And in the end, what happened was the show did go on. A lot of the drivers wore a star in her honor. That was the symbol that's associated with her. Um, but it did go on, and just about every driver you interviewed, I think everyone weighed in on it, and all of them were, of course, traumatized for the accident had taken place. And then again, a year or so later, when unfortunately she died, the same thing happened again. A few more stars came into the picture, but the racing went on.
Yeah. No, I absolutely, and I think that's what's going to happen this time. And I would imagine that they would pay a similar kind of tribute at the Grand Prix next week, as you mentioned. I do want to say a couple of things briefly about our decision to put this video out tomorrow, and hopefully people will watch this before they watch the video tomorrow, if they do watch it. We just want to say that we're not going to, hold back. There's a lot of messing around in the video. We spin off the track. We make, we did some funny things with traction control and things like that. And it's all good fun. But I just want to make sure that people are aware of the fact, and I want to be able to refer people to this, to make them aware of the fact that none of this is in any way connected to this incident. It's in no way meant to be disrespectful. We're just doing what we would have done anyway. And I just want to make sure that people are aware of that and don't misconstrue anything that they may or may not see in the video tomorrow as anything to do with this incident, because it's really not. And I suppose the other thing I want to touch on as well briefly is that although this is a really tragic accident and in no way excusable, I mean, I imagine there'll be a full, or has already been, an investigation into it and all this kind of a thing. It's worth mentioning that this is the first fatal accident, I believe, in F1 for quite a serious amount of time, if I'm not mistaken, at least well over 10 years.
It's actually more than 20 if you only count drivers. The last one was Ayrton Senna in, I think that was 1994. I believe that was the Imola circuit. And that, again, was a tragedy. Now, I was too young at the time. I was about 6 years old, didn't really appreciate the sport at all to understand the magnitude of what had happened. But, again, the racing went on. In fact, 2 people died that weekend, if I recall. That was Roland Ratzenberger as well. So 2 people die in one race weekend, and the race goes on amidst a horrible tragedy.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate to say, but I believe back in the earlier days of F1, death with not just drivers but other people involved in the sport as well was unfortunately just all too common. And I think we can't lose sight of the fact that despite this horrible tragedy, that F1 has actually become a much safer sport than it has been in the past.
Yeah.
And I just think that's worth touching on briefly, because it can be, I don't want to say blown out of proportion, because when something like this happens, it's never out of proportion. And obviously we need to make sure that nobody ever dies again in the sport of F1. But I think a lot has gone into it to make sure that it is safe. And yeah, but it's still just such a horrible tragedy. And he was only, as I believe, 25 years old. And I mean, as we were saying just before we started recording this, I mean, we're both older than he was. I mean, he's younger than us, and I don't know why, but that just really sort of adds a really sort of horrible perspective to it.
Yeah, I mean, we are both mid-20s, and as was he. And it's horrifying to think that his career has been cut short. Successful though it has been cut short to a point that, as you said, we are older than him. And we are able to get on with his life, with our lives, sorry, whereas he can't. And that's horrific.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think it's a terrible tragedy, and it's one that obviously is affecting the whole of the F1 world. But as we say, we're still going to go ahead and put out the F1 2015 video that we've created tomorrow. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and as I say, just see it as a tribute to Jules as opposed to anything particularly dodgy. I know on this channel that I've, as erratic as it is, I have said and done things that are politically questionable at best, but I just want to make sure that everyone's aware of the fact that we're definitely not taking this lightly. Is there anything else that you would want to add to this before we wrap this up?
I think you've covered it rather well. I mean, the video is going out. We drive badly, we crash, we hit barriers. That's the way we've always raced. I mean, we've got the 2014 video, I believe. We've got a couple of F1 videos, and we haven't really changed the way we've driven. I personally have tried to make sure I don't say anything too out there that, in the context of things, could be taken as possibly related. I think I've managed to pretty much hold my tongue there. But, at the end of the day, we're racing, and that was a tragic though it is, it's a racing incident. And unfortunately, we are inexperienced drivers. We have incidents like that all the time. And fortunately for us, we do it in safety. When we crash, no one gets hurt, and it's just such a shame that in Formula One recently we've had incidents like this. So we have Bianchi. Um, we can't lose sight of the fact we had a marshal die, I believe, last year at Canada. Uh, Unfortunately, recently people have died in Formula One. Now, luckily, it hasn't happened as much in the past 20 years as it has in the 20 before that. But it's just something we can't lose sight of, especially with the timing. I mean, this game came out last week, the week before, I'm not sure exactly when, and we decided that because we've done videos on it before, we'll do another one now. It's just such a shame that the timing has happened the way it has, and it's completely unrelated.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'd already planned to start making this video and had already begun before we even knew what had happened, and the timing is just so unfortunate. But again, I think in many ways what we would do is a tribute. And I just want to say thanks very much for everyone for watching this video. If you have done, it's, as I say, hope you will enjoy the video we put out tomorrow. And thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. Ta-ra.
Absolutely.